Good afternoon. I applied for this fellowship because I had a hunch. I thought we could credit carbon on vacant land and create other benefits too. Now, every community has some vacant land. I focused my career as a landscape architect on places where the vacancy is problematic. Places like Detroit, where I've lived and worked for the last 12 years. Places with more land than resources. By vacant land, I mean property that is small and residentially zoned. One of its quirks and features is that it's a neighbor to other people and other properties. In my experience, proposals for the future of these landscapes are reliant on philanthropy. The projects that go the furthest accept these long-term fiscal constraints. They're permanent. This was the starting point for my fellowship year. Today, I'm going to tell you a bit about the carbon marketplace and a bit about vacant land. I want to bring these topics into better focus so that you can understand my vision. So I have some good news. Whether you realize it or not, you've probably already participated in the carbon marketplace. If you've bought something online in the last, 18 months, you've likely encountered Shop Pay. They're one of many new B2B services in the climate economy. They remove carbon from the air, but how? Mostly what they're doing is buying carbon credits. Carbon credits are an idea whose time has arrived. They allow purchasers to offset or neutralize their carbon-releasing activities. The key here is they do it somewhere else. A credit is a virtual good. It's verified by third parties. It's tracked by registries that store them. One credit is always equivalent to 1 ton of carbon. But like any other product, the quality ranges. Carbon prices are not standardized across the marketplace. Instead, this high-growth market is comprised of thousands of directly negotiated transactions between buyers and sellers. Now, today, there are more than 100 methodologies for crediting carbon, and the majority of carbon is credited through landscapes. A project starts with the selection of a methodology. These are like specifications for doing a project. It describes how a project creates additionality. This is the change in carbon over time that these projects credit. Now, you make carbon projects by really bringing together the story of the project and the science. The story lives with the project operator. These are the people and groups who manage the land. Matchmaking has its mysteries, but usually it's the carbon developer who initiates the project. They have their own specialties and preferences, just like landscape architects. During project formalization, consultants are hired, things are measured, acronyms fly all around, and the credits are developed. Once this phase is complete and contracts are signed, the project and its credits are listed at a registry. Then the project flips into what can be a very long-term monitoring mode, spanning 25 to 100 or more years. The project operator receives the majority of the revenue generated from this, with payments sometimes up front and then at determined intervals. So in 2022, $543 million flowed into the creation, restoration, and care of these landscapes globally, all arising from the carbon marketplace. But currently in this market, the connection between an emission and its offset is virtual. This is a map of all of the California Air Resource Board forestry and land use category projects. You can see there are landscapes working nationally to deliver benefits to California. In the beginning, options for crediting carbon were limited to rural areas, the familiar terrain of the conservation movement. Rural settings created large projects with long timelines, like this one. Here, the project operator is replanting 12,000 hectares of federal lands. and doing this over 60 years. These are low-value credits, averaging around $10 a ton. People are buying mostly the science here, not so much the story. And incidentally, it's a bulk purchase for an energy company. But as demand continues to grow, practitioners are finding new ways to realize these projects closer to people. This is largely by writing new methodologies. And there's no rule against this, it's just not in the DNA of the people driving the ship. For example, the Family Forest Carbon Program. This is part of a new generation of project developers. They're seeking to meet carbon goals and also accomplish something else. In this case, landscape health. Their projects are as small as 30 acres and spanning 20 years. These credits also sell to different purchasers. In this case, people who care about carbon, but also about biodiversity. Now, methodologies targeting carbon near people through the landscape have been limited. This one on the left, it was developed in 2007 for California's regulatory market. It still hasn't credited a single project, and its authors agree. It was too complex. But writing your own methodology with your own requisite diverse experience at the table is like writing your own rules. City Forest Credits, headquartered in Seattle, did just this. They operate exclusively in metropolitan zones on sites as small as 8 acres. Their methodology credits the benefit of trees in cities for carbon, but also for things like air quality improvement and rainfall interception. And their credits are valued at 2 to 4 times those of the projects in more rural settings. So 2 forces have been opening the window on this urban migration. First are changes in technology around satellites, machine learning, introducing efficiencies to that really long monitoring process, but also the increase in awareness and demand for carbon neutral products by consumers, business leaders. To realize these projects, a team of professionals comes together in that tangled kind of feasibility phase. But right now, landscape architects are not involved with this work. What if we localized more of this activity? What could we, as landscape architects, accomplish if we shorten this distance? So I've had a year to think about this, and frankly, it's been a pretty wild year. But communities with problematic vacancy have something to offer the carbon marketplace. They have land with influence. They have the stuff that compelling stories are made from. Nationally, there's a lot of land next to a lot of people that could benefit from improved maintenance. But also nationally, a lot of people with ideas, but not the resources in hand to execute. As my colleague, Dr. Evain Singh, likes to say, in these communities, this property is a part of the commons, regardless of who owns it. This is a landscape of real estate. It's the product of housing and lending markets as much as any natural process. In this context, delay is a given, and budgets are not. Maintenance typically languishes after a one-time investment in demolition. And in this setting, everybody pays. Vacant land concentrates costs onto immediate neighbors in a multitude of ways, including by lowering property values. This lost revenue, in turn, impacts the quality and provision of public services, unleashing a cycle. Seen together, this is a diverse national network of land, but currently, there's no way to find it, to work with it, to connect with it, or understand its full potential. And as it turns out, we're overdue for a land census. The last one was completed in the year 2000 using fax machines and paper surveys that were mailed to city officials. It was led by the Brookings Institute, and it rightfully focused on the economics of this property and not its dimension as a landscape. Through this fellowship, I had a chance to step back and look nationally at communities where vacancy is problematic. 2 organizations are providing leadership in this space, the Lincoln Institute and the Center for Community Progress. I brought their worlds together. and I created a universe. It touches 233 counties and 64 metropolitan zones. Today, information about vacant properties is siloed by city. Looking across jurisdictional boundaries allows us to ask some fun questions. For example, the availability of this land by hardiness zone. We can also ask more serious or timely questions about climate risk. But the who is the most important. In these communities, 31.5 million people live. That's roughly the density of Houston, Texas. And we know from a climate equity perspective that these are the places and the people we should be starting with for any investment in climate adaptation measures. Okay, we made it. Here's the vision. So my vision is to work collaboratively and launch a national atlas to locate and organize investment in publicly owned vacant land. The atlas will be a contemporary land census that brings together machine learning and user-generated content. At the national level, this will allow us to identify land with shared attributes, for example, based on funding sources. At the regional level, it will allow us to add capacity to local planning and efforts to identify or prioritize sites. And the goal here really is to spur aggregation. Now, to be clear, not all land in any community should be put towards productive use. I'm proposing a portfolio approach that relies on small pieces and in taking small steps. And I want to underscore that understanding this land network is useful for carbon, but it's also useful for other purposes. I think we can do this the right way. We can shorten the distance between emissions and mitigation. We can build and maintain landscapes near people and places who will benefit. We can start with the most vulnerable, and we can use leftover land with the ability to influence. In this setting, the carbon marketplace can serve as a bridge and bring other resources to the table, enabling modest local budgets to focus and to realize more. Higher performance landscapes, improved quality of life, increased landscape maintenance budgets. The Atlas will open the door on starting small and starting together. Starting small allows existing groups and organizations to participate and learn from their current capacity. Maintaining an 8-acre landscape is actually a very large responsibility. The Atlas is being designed to assist with building portfolios of land, including to pool and to pair projects across neighborhoods and across jurisdictions. These communities have more properties than resources. The Atlas will allow users to evaluate and consider the impact of landscape performance when prioritizing or leading a site selection process. Canopy cover, soil types, and for many places, even having an accurate location of their vacant land will be a leapfrog offering. With this tool, agencies working upstream of local actors like counties, council of governments, state DNRs, will all be better positioned to coordinate and pursue federal funding opportunities. The grant writing, the grant administration, it's usually way too large and too cumbersome for the smaller communities and the more acutely impacted folks to participate. The aim is to build this atlas through a cohort-based process that also strengthens connections across the community of practice required to deliver these projects. I'm aiming to build a tool, but also to strengthen an existing network. And the good news is I'm not doing this alone. Progress here requires a team, and I've used the last year to identify collaborators and to cultivate partnerships. I'm currently fundraising to build the first version of this atlas, which is an exercise in partnering and in starting small. I'm also exploring project development in geographies where land banking, shown here in pink, and conservation finance, in blue, intersect. I'd like to say thank you to the Landscape Architecture Foundation, and especially my family, for the last year of support in giving this idea the space and the time to grow. And in conclusion, the Atlas will help, but What we also need are more project developers to pull all the pieces together and to mobilize this opportunity. I'd like to encourage all of us to exhaust the potential of city forest credits methodologies. These are the ones that target the metropolitan zones. And along the way, as we exhaust what they already have in place, we might discover unmet needs and opportunities. I wanted to confirm that yes, you can hire a consultant to lead you through this. You can hire someone at the project level up front, but also for your business. And then finally, what I shared with you this afternoon, it's a work in progress, and this is a rapidly evolving space. And I just wanted to reconfirm that this is only the beginning. Thank you.